with Unseelie and with collaboration in general, what makes me feel the most happy is when like you work with someone, you're creating something and you give them all the space in the world to make what they want. Even with Kisalina, like for the album cover, the only thing that I told them was, I just want a bug. Like that was it. I was just like, I want a bug. And that's what they made. And the thing is, when you allow that freedom, it's like, there's no restraint. Like they're going to make something crazy. And it's the same in Unseelie. Like someone will be like, I want to do this. And you just let them do that. And they'll do it in their most brilliant way. For all the artists that we release, it's like, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? Let's just make your dream come true. Let's make your vision come true.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of Cybercause. I'm your host Angel, live from hell, and today we have a very special guest. An Unseelie spirit, a kind soul, and an artist creating unique sonic worlds. Dasychira.
I am Dasychira. I make music, I make art, I make videos, experiences, toys, and I would probably say storytelling is the most crucial aspect of my work. I don't want to put anything in a box, but if I had to categorize it in some kind of way, like if I had to introduce my music to someone, I would say Scribblecore is the most fitting analogy. Either Scribblecore or Keepsake-Core.
Keepsake-Core?
Keepsake. So like something that you might feel like attached to, like in this sort of sentimental way. For example, it's been very like difficult for me to let go of things that I felt very close to in my childhood. So like old plushies or, you know, like a meaningful book in general, or even like walking down the street in New York and I'd like find something like shiny. I would like keep it in my room forever. Or like a rock at the beach or something. That's like sort of that mentality with my music, is that it's about sort of documenting these moments in life that feel very like sincere and unique, and kind of like, yeah, like solidifying them through the form of music, to like telling that story, to like keep it alive.
So, do you kind of want others to keep your music as a keepsake?
In a way, I guess like it's sort of my diary and it's like my own keepsake that I'm sharing. But the best part for me is like when others can share their experiences with me, like based on my music. So like, for example, there's this really sweet person who's like been supporting my music, and on Bandcamp, like a little while ago, like they sent me a message and they were just like, I was swimming in this lake and there were all these like pink daisies like swirling around me. And I was just thinking of like, when I was listening to the song Puppet Ballerina Edit, it like brought me back to that moment. And when people tell me things like that, like what they were doing or like a memory or an experience that they had in relation to my music, that's like sort of the ultimate thing for me, because music is almost like a way for me to remind myself that like I exist and like that all these experiences are real and they have meaning. And also like, I guess in the greater scheme that like everything is art in a way, like every experience you have is art, every interaction you have is art, because each moment is so ripe with like possibility. So like if someone comes up to me after a show and says like, you know, I was thinking about like this crazy childhood memory while you're performing, you know, that's like the ultimate for me, because that's where my music comes from. It comes from that place of like keepsake, of wanting to hold on to something precious, like to remind yourself who you are, or something that you really care about, or something that you want to revisit. So that's why I would say Keepsake-Core as well as Scribblecore, which Scribblecore is just like, I like it as a very visual term, like a very like colorful like way to say like it's almost as if this person with like crayons is just like manically just like going like this and just like letting all of this expression out like onto a canvas.
So in a way, like an unfiltered, childlike expression.
Yeah, exactly.
That also brings me to the question about these symbols of childhood and adolescence in your music and how your childhood
Hmm.
may have influenced your creative process and you making music.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it feels very much like dreamy and distant in a lot of ways. Not just because it was long ago, but just because of the context. It's like I grew up in South Africa, and I lived in Johannesburg, which is a really beautiful place. It's in an area that's called like the High Veld, so it's like super high above the sea level. And there's all these beautiful trees around it. They call it the city of trees too, Johannesburg, because there's so many trees everywhere. Like I think I heard someone say that it has like more trees than any other city in the world. Um, so you really get a sense of life living there. Like you're surrounded by living things, like nature. There's lots of like beautiful creatures, you know, like birds, and I even had these like wild cats living in my backyard that I discovered, like that are super rare to find. They're called genets.
Really?
So it's almost like you're living in this ecological system that's just like so magical, but it feels like so far away from the rest of the world. So like growing up, I would say like everything felt really dreamy because you're in this place that like feels like there's so much mystery and magic and life everywhere, but it's like super far away from everywhere else. And when you hear about like other places in the world, like you have this like sort of fantasy, like New York is this fantasy, or even like London, or any sort of like far away country in the northern hemisphere felt like just this like distant dream, and it always excited me like to go travel and to go see it. And I think there was always this like yearning for like, I wouldn't say escapism, but like excitement to see other places in the world, but also like there was so much magic like in front of me, and there was a lot of room to dream. I think what it was really is like it's a really big sky country. Like you can always see the sky, and it's like huge sky, and there's just so much room there to imagine and to dream, and to like think about like what's possible in life. And it just really felt like limitless because of this space, and also just feeling so far away from everything. It's like, wow, what is that? Like what is New York? Like what is, you know, all of these like distant places. So that was really beautiful. And also, yeah, like having a lot of exposure to things that like 90s kids, I would say, would, you know, like Pokemon was like a really big inspiration for me, and Disney films. I think like I played chess from a really early age, which also like inspires me a lot. And I was always really interested in exploring. There were like a lot of bugs in South Africa, so I'd like go out and like try catch them and like put them into a little terrarium. Like I used to love getting like silkworms and putting them in a shoebox and waiting for them to like hatch. And also like catching like ladybirds and like praying mantises. And so my first record that came out on Blueberry called Immolated, that was like supposed to be this encapsulation of like a life cycle of like this imaginary insect.
Ooh.
And in my youth, I used to be really like fond of insects. Like I was fascinated by them because they're literally like aliens in a way, like on Earth. They just like are completely individual creatures, like from mammals. So I was always just like, fascinated with like where did they come from, you know, and like what do they like, how do they operate, how do their brains work and stuff like that. And there's this one insect in South Africa that's called like a Parktown prawn. It's kind of this like hybrid breed between like a cockroach and a grasshopper as like one creature. So imagine like a giant red sort of like cockroach creature with long legs that can like jump really high. And like, you know, when I was a kid, I used to think bugs were really cute, but then I started like finding those in my shoe, like every now and again. Like I'd wake up in the morning to be one in my shoe. And I just started like getting really freaked out by bugs and irritated because they were like everywhere. So in my childhood, I loved bugs. In my adolescence, I hated bugs. But then like this one year, I think I was 16, I was reading a book and it was kind of late at night and this praying mantis just like landed right in the middle of my page. And for a second, I just like thought, I'm just gonna squash this thing because I hate bugs. But really, I looked at it for a second and the way it was shining like under my lamp, it was this like emerald green and had this beautiful like pose. Like it was just sitting in this like sort of pensive way, like almost thinking and like coexisting. And in that moment, like I decided, okay, I love bugs again. And that's like a really important part of my life. And like remembering happy times in my life was, you know, experiences with bugs. So I come back to like all these experiences from my childhood in music to remind myself who I am and what my true values are. And like how also my values have been influenced by the external world in some ways, you know, or like, let's say most people like don't like bugs, you know, like that shouldn't be the reason I don't like bugs. Like I definitely do. And like, that's what my music is for. It's just to say, okay, I'm going to stay true to myself. I'm going to stay true to my memories and like core structures of like who I am.
Yeah, that makes also a lot of sense with the cover that you had for the first release.
Yeah, that turned out super well. And it was a dream come true because like I got in contact with this artist called Kiselina, who's based in Germany as well. And yeah, like I saw the album cover for Lotix, like Hetero Etc. And that like blew me away. And this was before like I had sort of like established myself as an artist. I was still kind of trying to find my feet. Like I had other music projects before that like weren't quite as I would say vulnerable. So I really wanted to work with someone who could like uncover like a really meaningful composition that had like a lot of depth. And I looked at Kiselina's work and I thought this person knows how to create like art with a lot of like sincerity and a lot of depth and a lot of meaning. So I just reached out and I was just like, hey, I love your work. I'd love to work together. And I sent the record and yeah, Kiselina liked it and was like a really, really nice person. And for a few months, it must have been like 8 months or something, that they were working on the album cover. And they kept sending me like little updates, which was cool because it was like, oh, this bug thing just keeps like evolving. Like it's like a little like sort of basic render and then it has hair and then it has like little like spiky parts.
So you literally
Like,
watched
so
it
excited.
grow.
Literally, yeah. So that was a treat for me. And just like that first record is a testament also to my childhood.
So if the only requirement for Kiselina was to make a bug, what was the requirement for S.A. Mayer for the second cover?
I honestly just asked them if he wanted to make me an album cover. But like there's a lot more to it. Like the reason that, you know, Pinocchio is on the cover, it goes pretty deep. So like for that record, basically we had been hanging out in New York. We're like at my apartment in Bushwick, and we watched the Digimon movie because I was just like I really wanted to watch it. And it was super hot. It was like the summer, and we watched it on the balcony, and we were just like laughing the whole time, just because like every 5 seconds is like this Digimon's evolving into this Digimon, like this Digimon's evolving into this Digimon. And it just like keeps happening, but there's like, it doesn't make any sense. And they keep like transforming into like completely different things. So like we watched Digimon and then we went back inside and Steven was like, oh, I want to show you this like horror podcast that I've been listening to. It's called the No Sleep Podcast. It's like these horror stories from Reddit. And he put that on and I was like, okay, cool. Like, do you want to draw something? Like, let's chill. And then we just started drawing like together. Each of us was drawing and I was like, oh, we should like make a Digimon. Like we should make a character together. So then we drew like this creature, like Monstro. This is the prototype of the plushie. The first version. But yeah, so we drew like this creature in a much more detailed, dark way. And it was a lot larger. It was like a big monster. And it was based sort of on the Digimon monster in the movie that's like the bad guy called Cherubimon. And we drew our own version of Cherubimon. And then, you know, after that, it was just like very chill. Like we were just hanging out. And then a few weeks later, I was working on my record and I was just like, do you want to make the album cover for it? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, what do you think about like our character? And he's like, yeah, I can try and model it, see what it looks like. And and he modeled it, and it looked really crazy. But the thing is, he couldn't get the composition looking the way that he had wanted it to, because it was just like, it had a very like long body, and he tried to like make it look like a spaghetti monster, like twirling it around itself. And then it was like going to be on a chessboard, but then that didn't really work out. So he scrapped it, and then he kept doing new versions of it, but like he would do new versions of it and not show me, and then like delete it. Because like he wanted to be happy with it, which is always what I want. I always want the person I'm collaborating with to be happy with what they make. So he just kept like making new versions of it, like trashing it, making new versions, trashing it. And then we went out for dinner one night, and he was just like, yeah, I'm kind of stuck. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, maybe like this won't work. And I was like, no, like we have to find a way. And then like I spoke about like that night that we made the drawing and about the Hard podcast. And he thought about it. And then he was like, okay, no, I still want to do it. And then like a few weeks later, he's like, okay, I've decided I'm going to do a chibi, like cute short version. That's literally what chibi is, of that character. And then we had like Monstro, and he was going to have all these characters. So all these characters on the vinyl on the back cover, they were going to be like hanging out together, like in a basket. But that didn't really work as a composition either. And then a few weeks went by, and he didn't tell me what he was making, but he's like, I've got it. And I was like, okay, cool. Because I need it by like Friday. It was like this like deadline was coming. I was like, I need it by Friday. And then he's like, yeah, you're going to like it. I was like, cool. And he sent it to me, and it was Pinocchio. And I was just so blown away, because I didn't ask him for Pinocchio, but it made so much sense, because like what my record is about has so much to do with like the story of Pinocchio, of like not feeling like, you know, you're the true person that you are, and that you're kind of like a puppet to the world. So that was like a really fitting analogy for the album. Like having Pinocchio on it was like the ultimate way to just like wrap a ribbon around it. It's like complete. So yeah, I love how it turned out, and it just feels like a very sort of like classic cover, like a very sort of like like solid image for the music.
It's actually cool because I didn't know the backside of the LP had all the little characters on it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the critters.
Yeah. So I had the thought that for the remix album, it seems kind of that it's switched around with the characters coming from the front.
Yeah, there's so many versions of it, you know. That's what's nice about Steven's work too. I mean, just like each of these creatures he put like so much thought into. And like also like for the record itself, like there's a sticker. I signed this one, so like that's why it says like, you know, XX Dasychira on it. But like yeah, like there's these little stickers like xDream, and then with like the characters on it. So
that's so
yeah.
cute.
There's a lot of like room for creation there, and that's like really exciting for me, is like to make art and collaborate, and to expand upon something that feels much bigger than me as one person. It's like I'm trying to capture the essence of something that exists in this realm of like fantasy and like the unknown and like psychic. And you know, when you work with other people, it kind of like opens up this world even more. And yeah, it just grows naturally. So like the front cover, the back cover, the deluxe edition, like there's more surprises coming too. Like there's just so much that can like come from that.
Cybercore.